आं भगिनि
Na- Namaskaraha and welcome to our next session on yogic life. So today I want to talk about the relationship between the mind and our personal preferences. Right? So we, like many people, think that their mental tendencies or likings are not related with any philosophy. They think they like something because they were born with that inherent tendency, and they think that preference or inclination is permanent, and for this reason they do not want to change their liking. Right? What they fail to realize is that their mind is dynamic. It can go up or down depending on the nature of one's physical and mental engagement. Right? uh, so like what non sadhakas think is that whatever they like is fixed and permanent, such as their attachment to meat eating, such as their attachment to onion and garlic, such as their attachment to dairy products, right, to pop music, relations, etc. Like this, like whatever are likings, we think it's permanent. People think that these are part of their permanent way of living, and they like these things forever and ever and ever, right? But when we reflect a little, we can understand that people's likings change according to the status of their mind. And how do we know that is that when we look at grown up adults, they do not like to spend their time playing with dolls or stuffed animals, even though when they were 2 or 3 years of age, that was their favorite thing to do, right? So mind flows in either direction, up or down. And indeed one's liking is very flexible and very changeable. One can learn to appreciate things that they did not initially like for instance, a person who is working, he may get transferred to a new location, and he has never been to that location, and he doesn't want to go to that new place. Yet after moving to that place and being there for some time, he may start liking that place. And when what happens is, when he again gets transferred from that place, then he is again angry, he is again upset, and he doesn't want to leave that spot, right? And that is the way the mind works. As sadhakas, we should understand this and we should use it to our advantage, right? And we should teach this idea to other people also, so that they can also progress. So by Parama Purusha's grace, we have this human body and the human mind with this special quality, right? It is very changeable, it is very malleable, and it is this very quality that allows each and every one of us to achieve success in sadhana. And that quality is that mind will gradually adjust with and develop an affinity for anything in which it is involved. So that means even if sadhana is difficult initially, even if it seems impossible, but if one tries and persevere just a little bit, then gradually mind will become more adept at doing sadhana. So with a little effort, mind will become so immersed in sadhana that it will not wish to do anything else. So the whole process can work in the opposite direction as well. If one is constantly submerged in mundane things, mundane affairs, then their mind is fully involved in that, right? So that is pasajivanam. So everybody has to be very careful and pay attention to their mental occupation and daily activities, right? Those materialists in this world, they cannot understand this philosophy of mind. But in Yoganishta Jivanam, our entire approach and philosophy revolves around this practical science. that mind is very malleable and very changeable. If you focus your mind on that infinite, one day the mind becomes like that. Yadrishi bhavana yasya siddhi bhavati tadrishi. Right? So as as sadhakas, by the grace of the Supreme, we have a theoretical understanding as well as the practical practice to get success and reach the goal. When we look at the materialistic people, they will sadly become one with matter because they're constantly thinking about these material things, and as the mind thinks, so it becomes. So they one day will become matter. We as sadhakas, we should proceed along this path, thinking about the infinite and inspiring others as well. And success is actually guaranteed, right? As sadhakas, what do we need to do? We need to do satvik ahara, we need to do nirjal upavasa, we need to do vyapak soch, we need to do sadhana. Sadhana is the essence of life. It is the central theme, right? And when you constantly take the bhava of Paramapurusha, then one day mind will become the infinite. You have to follow the yama niyama, right? And do seva, help other people, bring other people, show the other people also the path. When you do all of this without giving importance to that individual existence, then one day success is actually guaranteed. Human beings, we should not be anxious under any circumstances, right? Paramatma is with everybody, and if we awaken this bhakti bhava for the Supreme, then the door of salvation will immediately open, right? We should understand this, that this human mind has a very unique and special quality. The mind will gradually adjust with and develop an affinity for anything in which it is involved, and we should apply this in our lives, right? As a sadhaka, we want to do sadhana and reach the goal, and unfortunately sometimes the mind doesn't cooperate, right? Even though you have intention to do it, but the mind doesn't cooperate. In that case, one must try and bring the mind to the spiritual flow by doing more svadhyaya, by doing japa, by singing the kirtan of Paramatma, doing dhyana, right? So whether the mind likes all this or not, gradually the mind will adjust and learn to like it, and thereby accelerating one's movement on the path. So even though initially one may feel that they're not liking doing sadhana, they're not liking doing all of this, but by slowly being steady in this, by constantly doing it, slowly one will start liking it, one will start developing that bhakti bhava for Paramatma. Then one would not want to leave all of this and go and do something else, right? So it's essentially everything is practice. So whatever we've been doing from childhood, if you look back, there are several things that we have done for the first time and we didn't like it. Did the child like going to school? No, it cried and cried and cried. It didn't say, it said, I don't want to go to school. And then slowly, the parents take the child, leave it, they stay there with the child for some time, and then make the child comfortable. Then after a period of time, what happens is the child it slowly develops friendship with other children, and then he doesn't want to come from school. It's playing in his school, and if the mother wants to bring the child back home, the child starts crying, I don't want to come, I want to be here and play, right? So now it started developing a liking. The same way, initially when you're doing svadhyaya, when you're doing japa, when you're doing sadhana, you may not like it, right? Because you're not used to it. But slowly when you start doing it more and more and more, then automatically you start liking it, right? So with just a little reflection, anybody can see how their liking changes according to their engagement of mind, right? Which is why the no grown-up adults like to pass their days playing with toys, even though when they were 6 or 7 years of age, playing with toys, that was the greatest thing, right? indeed once liking is very flexible and very changeable with ongoing regular engagement. So it's regular engagement is required. So if you regularly engage in something, then you will start liking it, right? So like so many students came to the shivir, they learnt a lot of new things, everything was new, and in the shivir everybody implemented it. But then when we go back, you know, we have to put our mind into it and try to do it. When you engage in it, and then regularly what happens, your mind starts liking, right? So initially you will not like it, it's very natural, you will not like it because you are not used to it, right? One can even learn to appreciate something that they do not initially like, right? So supposing, you know, this yoga nitya jeevanam, initially it's like, you know, I'm not inclined towards this, my mind is not liking this, right? They do not like sitting long for sadhana, they do not like doing asanas, right? They don't like satvik ahara, they don't like leaving the dairy products. But even then we should try. There is a key message. Even though we do not like, we should try. On the first day we may not like it, second day they may have a little more neutral reaction, and by the third day also they may start liking it and enjoying the practice. So that is the chief characteristic of the human mind. The mind is malleable. If the person begins engaging in the refined practices, then they will start developing an affinity for that good practice, and they will yearn to engage in that practice and surround themselves in good company, right? The central idea is that sadhakas must understand this, and must understand that the mind is malleable and changeable, and they should utilize this mental faculty in their favor, right? So by constantly doing these practices, the mind will change, the mind will get adjusted to these dharmic practices, and one will enjoy and yearn to do them, right? Such is the way the mind works. As sadhakas, we should understand this, and we understand this, and we should use this to our advantage. And also, not only we should understand that the mind is malleable and changeable, we should also teach this to other sadhakas so that they can also progress, right? Everybody is liking changes with very consistent engagement with a particular endeavor, right? So you know, if you don't believe that, you know, what is being said here is not correct, so let's like take an example. So if you're a sadhaka now, and let's say that, you know, if you look back 5 or 10 years and you check out what you were doing, who your friends were, right? You will see that there is quite a bit of change, right? There were a lot of friends when you were in school, right? It is now in your life, your friend circle will be completely different. What happened to those friends who were your such close buddies at that point in time, right? Now even though you meet them, you don't have that connection with them. Why? Right? Not with everyone you have that connection. Why? Because your likings change. Now your mind is different, right? So you can just see that over a period of time, right? So let's say that, you know, a girl who lived in her mother's house, and she was so close to her mother, right? She could not live without her mother. And then when she got married and when she moved to her husband's house, she was like, oh my god, how am I going to leave my mother? I lived with her for so many years. I can't, I need to see her, I need to be with her. Then she goes to her husband's house, and then initially it is like, you know, oh, I want to go back to my mother. Then you spend there for a few more years. Then what happens is that you feel like you can't leave your husband. You go to your mother's house, and then also you run back to your husband's house, because you feel, you know, that is what is permanent. Coming to your mother's house, seeing your mother is temporary, you feel, yeah, you feel the connection, and then but you still want to go back. right? So like that, whether it is with people or whether it is with activities, the mind is very changeable. All should utilize this faculty of the mind for developing more positive likings. So the things which are positive, which are good for you, even though you don't like it, you need to implement it, you need to engage in it, right? You need to bring that discipline, and by doing that slowly, what happens is that your mind changes. When your mind changes, then you don't like the old things, right? As you think, so you become, right? Yadrishi bhavana yasya siddhir bhavati tadrishi, right? As you think, so you become. So some some people hear this yadrishi bhavana yasya siddhir bhavati tadrishi, they may hear this, right? And they may understand, right? Some people, new people, hear this and they understand, but there are other new people uh, who have not heard this. So we should as sadhakas, we should ensure that this key concept is taught to everybody, right? This is very important. People think that the mind is stable, mind is permanent, right? The likings and dislikings in the mind are permanent. That is what people think, right? These days the yoga is very, very popular. So most yoga groups focus on the physical aspect, right? And they may include their own interpretation of pranayama. But here, right, the sadhana offers a full system for transforming one person into godhood, right? So as you think, so you become. This guideline is instrumental to our approach, right? The human mind is a very peculiar entity. It is the cause of all our sorrows and predicaments, and it is the cause of our supreme bliss. Mana eva bandhanam, right? Mana is the bandhana for uh, it's the karanam for the bandhanam. Whether whether your mind is, whether you are bound or whether you are liberated, what is the karanam? It is the mind. It is the cause of bondage and it's the cause of liberation. This mind which is inside this human body, right? It always requires a vishaya for its maintenance, right? It always, there is a vritti. That is what we call as a vritti. The mind has vritti, right? The mind has 50 vrittis, right? These are human propensities. They are called as vrittis. So the mind becomes like its ideation. Mind alone is the cause of bondage and liberation of human beings. So when we say it is the cause of bondage and liberation, why is it the cause of bondage and liberation? It is because all the beings below human beings are bereft of an independent mind. Only human beings have an independent mind. All the other beings do not have an independent mind. The mind in animals, they are guided by their natural instincts, but human beings have an independent mind. They act according to their will. They can take the track either of bondage or liberation. They can decide which way they want to go. They want their mind to be liberated or they want their mind to be in bondage. So this is the fundamental difference between human beings and animals, right? So the mind is savishayakam. It always has a vishaya. It always has an object, right? And in scriptures, this vishaya, the vishaya of the mind is called abhoga. Abhoga means the object which feeds the mind. That is the mental pabulum. That is the vishaya. If this pabulum is limited, then mind becomes limited, right? So the mind always has a vishaya, right? It has an object, and that vishaya is called as abhoga, right? Abhoga means the object which feeds the mind. That is what is called as the mental pabulum. And if the mental pabulum is limited, material things, then the mind also becomes limited. If the mental pabulum is infinite, right, by making an effort to obtain it, the mind becomes infinite. So it depends entirely on the will of the human beings what they want, whether they want the pabulum of their mind to be limited or unlimited, right? It's entirely in their hands. Whether a person becomes great or small completely depends on the person's wish, right? mana eva karanam bandhamokshayoh bandhastu vishayasangi mukto निर्विषय निर्विषयं विषयं तथा. So when the object of human beings is small, they remain fixed to it, they are in bondage. When the object of the mind is infinite and we get merged into it, as it's not possible to hold it, we call it as liberation. So when you constantly think about material things, then the mind comes into bondage, right? It is in bandhanam. When the vishaya of the mind is that supreme entity, then what happens is that mind cannot say separate from the supreme entity, it just gets merged into the supreme entity, right? So it is not possible for the mind to hold separate existence. When the mind is constantly thinking of the infinite, then it just merges into that infinite. पाशबद्धः भवेत् जीवः पाशमुक्तः भवेत् शिवः. One who is bound by bandhana, he becomes a jiva. One who is liberated from the pashas, he is Shiva. So if the object of the mind is limited, he is in bondage. If the object of the mind is unlimited, then the mind cannot keep its limitations. Then there is no bondage, but there is liberation. So in this Yoganishta Jivanam, we have practical methods of how to ideate on that supreme entity, right? We should learn it and we should share this technique with others, right? It's everyone's birthright to attain that infinite by their thoughts alone. One can attain his eternal grace by thoughts alone, right? Those who are genuine seekers of Brahman, genuine seekers of Brahma, of Parabrahma, right? So they will constantly think about that, ideate on the supreme entity. They will ideate on the supreme Parama Purusha alone, the supreme entity, Anadi Anant Satta, right? So when they ideate on that supreme entity, they become one with that entity, one with that entity. Therefore we should not waste our time on this earth. So when we learn something new, right, when we learn something new, so if there is something new that is being offered, first we should understand whether it's good or bad, right? If it is bad, it's not really good, it's not like what you think, but it is what is being presented genuinely looks good, right? And something genuinely looks bad, something is genuinely bad, we completely ignore it, we just move on. But something is good and several people have implemented it and everything looks genuine, like you're convinced that it's good, and even though you do not like it, you should implement it immediately. You should implement it immediately, and you will be surprised to see that your mind changes. Your mind is now changed, right? Now your mind doesn't like the things that what it used to like before, right? Because now your mind has changed, so you need to give the time, right? What people do is when we talk about satvika ahara, people all vanish. There's like, no, this is not possible, it's impossible for me to do it, right? It's all good in paper, but I cannot do it. That is because they haven't pushed themselves to do it. If they're convinced it is good, they have to try it, even though they do not like it. Even though they do not like it, they have to try it, and when they keep trying it, what happens is that they will start liking it. So that is the speciality of the mind. That is the special faculty of the mind. It's not permanent, it's always malleable, it's always changeable. We need to remember this and try to bring other people also, engage with other people, and also teach this thing to other people, so that we, just like we have transformed our lives, we should transform other people's lives as well, right? So that is what I wanted to talk today. So now we can actually go to our pravachan. Intuitional practice is our pravachan. So let me actually share the screen. Okay, in just a second. So okay, so we've been talking about intuitional practice, how intuitional practice is is required to liberate the mind and merge with that infinite entity. So in the Pratisanchar Dhara, Prakriti is Nitya Nivritta. Prakriti is wanting that human beings merge with that supreme entity. That is the design of Prakriti. So at 10 o'clock when human beings emerge, we have the opportunity for taking the shelter of, taking the support of Vidya Maya, follow the laws of Prakriti and do sadhana and merge with that infinite entity, right? So when we do sadhana and follow the yogic life, then slowly the Prakriti, she is Nitya Nivritta, so she slowly starts waning. Her impact starts waning, and when her impact starts waning, then what happens is that the mind merges into that infinite when you do sadhana, when you're alive, right? And at the time of death we get the mukti, moksha. So the thing that the concept that we were talking in the previous class was that when somebody is engaged in sadhana, they may get siddhis, right? When you get these siddhis, the siddhis must never be used. The siddhis must never be used whether for personal benefit or for helping others. Siddhis must never be used even for alleviating the suffering. So when a sadhaka gets these siddhis, he must think of these siddhis like a blade of grass, right? He must be thinking of them like a blade of grass, not give any importance to these siddhis, because the goal of life is that Parama Purusha. Even for alleviating the sufferings, or even for stopping floods or whatever, the reason for that is that everything in this universe is happening according to a design, according to a system. There is a karya karana bhava, right? And we as sadhakas do not have the right to interfere with the karya karana bhava. When we use the siddhis to interfere, it is essentially challenging Paramatma. It is challenging Paramatma. It is telling Paramatma that you don't know. I know better. I am doing. You're supposed to elevate the suffering. You're not doing it, and I'm doing it. When you have that bhava, that automatically ahankara comes. When ahankara comes, there is adogati only. There cannot be forward progress. You cannot merge with that supreme entity where there is individual existence and ahankara, glorification of ahankara. Then one cannot merge with that supreme entity, right? So it is very important to understand that the siddhis cannot be used for alleviating suffering. It is a disservice not only to you but also to the person whom you are helping. According to his karma pala, if you are supposed to undergo suffering, right, by undergoing that suffering, that karma pala will get destroyed, or it will get reduced. But instead, if the sadhaka uses the siddhis to alleviate the suffering, to that extent that person whose suffering has been alleviated, his karma pala will not be exhausted. So to that extent he will have to take rebirth to experience that karma pala, right? So therefore the sadhaka should not engage in using the siddhis for whatsoever reason. Right? We also said that using the siddhis is regarded as a blasphemy, and it is not only challenging the supremacy of Paramatma, right, but also it is interfering with the karya karana bhava. It is not only, it is a loss for you, but it is also for the person whom you are helping. It should never be done. Okay, we'll actually move forward from here. I'm going to share my screen in a second. Okay, from every action will have a reaction. Can you read from there, Bhagini?
Bhagini. Every action will have a reaction, and that has to be experienced. Use of supernatural powers is also an action. It is not only an action but a blasphemous action, an evil deed. One is bound to suffer the consequences of such an action. And as long as one has not exhausted the experiencing of all the potential reactions, samskara, one cannot obtain freedom from the bondage of Prakriti. Hence, the use of supernatural powers bestowed by intuitional practice is not justified under any circumstance. It invariably leads to downfall and degradation, and so it is essential to refrain from the temptation of using such powers. This paragraph essentially says that every action is a reaction, and using of the supernatural powers is an evil deed, and you will have to suffer the consequences of using it for for something like healing someone or getting something for them. All those things is an evil deed, and so we cannot escape the reaction, that is the samskara, that is the karma pala, and you cannot you cannot come out of the bondage of prakriti. So it is advisable not to use the supernatural powers, and also this will lead only to our downfall and degradation, and it is essential that we stop or we refrain from using the supernatural powers.
Yeah, very nicely said. So that is the point. Engaging in the use of supernatural powers itself is a karma, is itself a kriya, which is going to have a pratikriya, which is going to have a reaction, right? So, so our attempt over here as sadhakas is to go against the chain of, is to get rid of this, this bandhanas, right? So, by using the supernatural powers, it is an attempt to go against the chain of action and reaction, and one is actually chopping oneself. By doing actions, we are going to have reactions which will delay one's ability to progress, which will reverse one's movement on the pratisanchar dhara, right? So in every way it is negative. There's no positive thing, but the person who gets the power, they can't see this. That is the problem, right? So they become blinded by it. So they become so blinded by it that they do not see the ultimate goal. So that is why we are talking about that, this being a razor's edge, right? The path is very dangerous, right? One can degenerate oneself at any point in time, right? But it's not like that for a person who has developed bhakti bhava for Paramapurusha. So this problem is only for a person who doesn't have the bhakti bhava for Paramapurusha, right? The bhakti is a pure bhagavatah prema bhava, bhagavatah seva bhaktihi, right? The prema that one has for the supreme entity, that is the strength of attraction and love for the supreme entity, right? Which is what makes one continue on the path, right, without any danger, right? If one doesn't have the attractiveness for Paramapurusha, then all of this is possible. If somebody has the attraction, for Paramapurusha, then none of this danger is not there. It's only for a person who has attraction to the supernatural powers. Right? The attraction to Paramapurusha is weak. Attraction to supernatural powers is greater. Then their mind gets contaminated. Right? So, so their mind was not properly developed by following the yogic life sufficiently, due to which they got confused what the goal of life is. Right? So such people get confused when there is no bhakti bhava. Right? So they're not able to develop the attraction for that supreme entity. So Paramapurusha is a magnet, is a huge magnet, and all the jivas are like iron. Right? If there is no contamination, then the jiva will get attracted to the supreme entity. But if there is contamination, then they fall into this janma marana chakra. Okay, we'll take one more paragraph. Rajni, are you there?
Sorry, I didn't unmute it. Sorry. Emancipation can be achieved by intuitional practice, sadhana, and so there must be a special technique for it. This can only be taught by one who knows the technique. It is therefore necessary learning intuitional practice to find a teacher who knows this technique. Uh, does it then mean that a preceptor guru is absolutely necessary for learning intuitional practice and obtaining emancipation, or one can learn it oneself? A man in prison with his hands and feet shackled will never be able to set himself free in spite of his best efforts, unless someone else opens the prison gate and removes his shackles. Similarly, people have been shackled by Prakriti and imprisoned in this wide prison, the world. It would never be possible for them to become free without the help of another person. I'll read the next paragraph also.
Yeah,
Besides
okay.
this, it is not possible for anyone to learn an art all by themselves. One must have someone who can teach them or whom they can initiate. Such a person from whom one can learn an art is a preceptor. Intuitional practice, sadhana, is also an art and has to be learned from a preceptor. Hence, emancipation is not possible without a preceptor or a guru. A guru is always a prime necessity for obtaining emancipation. So, the emancipation from the bondage of Prakriti can be achieved only by intuitional practice, and so there must be a special technique for it. This can be only taught by one guru. Only the guru can initiate the intuitional practice or the sadhana, so that this can help the sadhaka to emancipate himself from the bondage of Prakriti. So it is not possible for the sadhaka to learn all by himself, and these two paragraphs essentially stress the need of for a guru or a preceptor to learn the techniques to emancipate ourselves from the bondage of Prakriti. This is also compared to a prisoner who is jailed and he cannot free himself, who is jailed and shackled, and he cannot free himself of his shackles unless someone opens the prison gates and removes its shackles. So similarly, a guru can help the sadhaka. Only a guru who is well versed in all this, who has done sadhana and who has the bhakti bhav, helps the sadhaka, and he or she can free himself from the bondage of Prakriti. These two paragraphs essentially says that.
Yes, Pagini, nicely said. So previously we talked about the siddhis, the supernatural powers. Here, in this paragraph, that those people who do not want to lead an animal life, they want to lead a human life, uh, would need to learn sadhana, right? And what is the way? Right? We've talked a lot about the sadhana angas, talked about the satvika ahara, practicing asanas, nirjala upasa, all of those things are needed. And right, and when we and in order to learn sadhana, we need proper guidance. We need to learn the technique uh, from somebody who's capable, of somebody who's not entrapped in prakriti. Somebody, if somebody who is themselves in prakriti, then if somebody is bound, then they cannot teach us how to get freed, right? So there are all kinds of people in this world, right, who claim to be spiritual teachers, but if but these people are themselves students in this universe, like rest of the jivas, right? We're all students who come here to learn something. So those who are themselves not realized cannot provide the guidance and the path of liberation to others, right? They themselves are injured. So this is the point. A man in prison with his hands and feet shackled will never be able to set himself free, right? So he can never be able to set himself free without getting proper guidance from somebody else, or by going to somebody else who themselves is not imprisoned. In neither of those scenarios can the person get proper guidance, right? Not by just looking at the internet at different things, and not by reading a book, or not going to a so-called guru, right? So the important teaching over here is that Brahma eva guruhu ekaha na paraha, right? Only Brahma is the guru. No one else can be a guru except Brahma, because only that Brahma is not imprisoned. Everybody else is imprisoned. So who are they going to teach? They are also reborn. All these people are reborn. They start, people start, different places saying, we're going to teach this and that. They call themselves gurus, right? They call themselves, they say master of this and master of that, right? But the thing is, they all got reborn here, right? And they also, that means they all got reborn means that they're all students. They are not in a position of teaching, right? So such people cannot give us the proper technique. That is the point. That is a very central point, that in order to get proper guidance, one has to learn it from an entity who is themselves not imprisoned, and that is Brahma himself, right? So that is what is in the first paragraph, right? So, and the second paragraph is who is a guru, right? We said Brahma eva guru. Why we call Brahma guru? Gu means andakaraha. Ru means light, right? One who gives that light to remove the darkness. So guru means the entity who has the power to remove the darkness from others' minds, right? So that entity who has such a power has to be somebody who is not in the dark themselves. Only such an entity can be guru, and such an entity is indispensable to the human being for moving ahead, right? So this is an important point, is that we cannot create this path ourselves. We ourselves are in the dark, and it needs somebody who is not in the dark to show us the pathway to get out. So once having learned that, then it is guaranteed that the person who follows the true path of manava dharma will get emancipated, right? This is inherent in the design and the nature of human beings, that they have the ability, once they get the proper teachings, to get emancipation. It's not limited, right? So anybody who is a member of the manava jati, has an ability to follow this dharma and get mukti or moksha. So in order to follow this dharma, one has to get proper guidelines. One has to get the teachings from somebody who is themselves not imprisoned, and that entity is called a guru, right? So we are getting more and more clarity or a good picture about how yogic life looks, right? So this yogic life, from my experience, I can say that it's a very beautiful thing. And we have talked about our experiences in the past, right? About shifting from how we were living to the yogic life, and it has a very deeply positive effect on each and every human being. So we should engage in it more and more, right, with every passing day, and encourage all around us people to do the same, right? Thereby we will benefit by creating an environment, right, by creating this Manav Samaj, living in it and also inspiring others in the proper direction, right? So even if people whose inner eyes have not opened, even if they are in the satsang of the people who are engaged in yogic life, it will have a positive impact, right? They will be positively influenced by the sadhakas, right? So it's important to understand, essentially, this paragraph, it is important to understand who a guru is. Not every person, Tom, Dick and Harry, can be a guru. Brahmaiva guru. So when mukti akankshaya sadguru praptihi, when you have the mukti akanksha, then the guru manifests himself in front of you, right? Parama Purusha, he will manifest through some fundamental factors, through the Panchabhutas, he will manifest himself and he will teach you the technique. But when you have that mukti akanksha, when you don't have the mukti akanksha, then Parama Purusha will wait until the time is right, when you're ready, and he will manifest himself. So essentially you need to have the desire in your heart, then he will appear. Okay, so we'll go to the next paragraph. Bhagni, take this paragraph.
One who is in bondage cannot release others from bondage. One with shackled hands and feet cannot remove the shackles of others. Hence, the person who is not emancipated cannot give emancipation to others. The only entity which is completely free from the influence of Prakriti is the non-qualified supreme entity, Nirguna Brahma, and it alone can be called really emancipated. So now this paragraph essentially says that one who is in bondage cannot release others from bondage, and one who is shackled themselves cannot remove others shackles. So the person who is not emancipated can definitely not help other person to get emancipated. So the only entity which is free from this is the Nirguna, non-qualified Nirguna Brahma, or the non-qualified supreme entity, and this alone can be called really emancipated. Only that person who is a Nirguna Brahma can be said to be really emancipated.
Yes, very nicely said. So that's the idea, that if we are in prison and we have somebody else also who is in prison, he cannot let us out, right? So if a jiva, like if jiva is in prison and wants to get out of the prison, then somebody who is outside and who can help, we should seek the help of such a person, right? And if all the other people are fellow prisoners in the prison, they cannot let you out, right? We need somebody who is not in the prison. So we have reached the point of saying that Nirguna Brahma is certainly not in prison. So the question comes as to whether it could be that every entity who is going to let you out of prison, like who is the entity who is going to let you out of prison, right? So the only entity who is completely free from the influence of Prakriti, Nirguna Brahma, right? It can alone be actually called as really emancipated. That Nirguna Brahma is the only one which is free of the influence of Prakriti, and it is fully emancipated. Let me take the next paragraph.
Nirguna Brahma, the non-qualified entity, can, however, never be instrumental in giving emancipation to others. It cannot, in the complete absence of the influence of Prakriti, have even the will to wish for the emancipation of others. Only the entity can be a preceptor who is himself the supreme rank of Brahma and located at the tangent of Nirguna and Saguna Brahma. Is beyond the gunas of Saguna Brahma and yet has a connection with the jivas, so that he can guide them towards liberation. And at his own influence, when needed, he takes human form for a predetermined period for the welfare of living beings. Such an entity will, by his own volition, be under the influence of Prakriti as long as he maintains his physical body, and on his relinquishing it, will return to the supreme rank, the non-qualified supreme entity. So, Nirguna Brahma, the non-qualified entity, can, however, never be instrumental in giving emancipation to others. Cannot, in the complete action, absence of the influence of Prakriti, have even the will to wish for the emancipation of others. So they cannot, when they are outside the bondage of Prakriti, they cannot give emancipation to others. So, to give, if they wish to give and help the other jivas, they can come under the bondage of Prakriti and they can give emancipation to someone, and they should be in the tangent of the qualified, non-qualified Brahma and the qualified Brahma, that is Saguna Brahma, Nirguna Brahma and the Saguna Brahma. So they have to come under the bondage of Prakriti and come in the human form and help others to get emancipated. And once the Jivatma leaves, once they leave the human form, they have to directly go back to the non non to the non-qualified supreme entity. So they can come out and they can help the other jivas to come out of it and give them emancipation, rather, to come out of the bondage of Prakriti.
Yes,
So
Bhagini,
this is
nicely, yeah,
uh,
yeah, nicely said. So, just 1 second, Bhagini. So this Nirguna Brahma, right? This Nirguna Brahma can never be instrumental in giving liberation to others. The reason for that is that in Nirguna Brahma, the Prakriti is in Trama Avastha. It's not having any influence on the Purusha. So when Prakriti is in Trama Avastha, Purusha is not able to even realize himself, right? So actually the concept that is being explained over here is very, very deep, right? So this Nirguna Brahma is very aloof, right? So the ultimate goal of human life is to attain that Nirguna Brahma. But that Nirguna Brahma is beyond mind, right? It is beyond mind and it has no connection with the human beings. It is beyond the world. It is beyond this world. It has no gunas. Prakriti is there in a condition of Swarupa Parinama, right? Swarupa Parinama means that the three gunas of Prakriti are forming a triangle and there is no Srishti being created. Right? So in Nirguna Brahma, the situation is that it is the form of Brahma, even though there is a goal of human life, but that Brahma doesn't have any connection with the world. Right? So it is beyond the mind, and in that Nirguna Brahma, Prakriti is in a condition of Swarupa Parinama. That means the Prakriti is not influencing the Purusha. And that is the situation with the Nirguna Brahma as pure consciousness. And then the Saguna Brahma, he is running this entire creation. Right? Just 1 second, Bhagni, 1 second. He is running this entire creation, and he is actually busy with this creation. Right? The Saguna Brahma is he's running this entire creation, and he's busy with running this creation. And in the Saguna Brahma, Prakriti has an impact, and that is how the Srishti has come into being. Right? We have talked about the creation of the cosmic mind, right, from 12 o'clock to 3 o'clock. So that is the mind of Saguna Brahma. So essentially this whole creation is nothing but Brahma. So this creation is occurring on the chitta of the of Saguna Brahma. So the Saguna Brahma has a very huge job of running this universe, of this Srishti. That's a really huge job. So he has a connection with this world, this created world, but is involved in running it, that there is no really scope for taking any responsibility for liberating the jivas. Right? So what we need to understand is that Brahma is one. It's not like we have multiple Brahma. Brahma is one. Right? It's not like we have two entities, Nirguna Brahma and Saguna Brahma. Brahma is one. Nirguna and Saguna are both adjectives of the term Brahma. Brahma is Ekam. Right? There is only one Brahma, and that needs to be understood clearly. Right? Supreme consciousness is only one. Not like we have 2, 3, 4 or 5, 10 Brahma. There is only one. It can be with gunas or without gunas, but the Brahma is one. Here what is being said is that there is a third form of Brahma which is located at tangent. That tangent means the 12 o'clock in Srishti Chakra. The tangent means the touching point where Srishti Chakra begins to be created. That very point is in between the Nirguna and Saguna. So that Brahma has one foot in both. It is unaffected by this created world, but it is not an aloof entity like Nirguna Brahma, who does not have any connection with this created world. So it is in the middle of the Nirguna and Saguna Brahma. There is a third form of Brahma, right? So even though all Brahma is one, right, it's just three different functional forms of the same Brahma, and the third Brahma is called as Taraka Brahma. Taraka Brahma, Tarayati, Asman Tarayati, one who liberates us. Right? The Taraka Brahma is the tangent of the Nirguna and the Saguna Brahma. Right? So the Taraka Brahma has connection with all the jivas, a very lovely connection, and there is this form of Brahma, the Taraka Brahma, is actually waiting for the inner feelings within human beings, right? Whether it is starting from stone, starting from the Pancha, everything is moving towards the direction of, right, ultimately taking the form of humans. Right? We'll have to take several lives. So human beings, initially they're born as Pashus, inside Pashus, outside Manavas. Ultimately they realize one day they don't want to live this Pashu Jivanam anymore. Right? They don't want to degenerate themselves anymore, and when their inner eyes open, then this Taraka Brahma, who has been waiting patiently for that day, just like a baby who cannot walk initially, and then the mother and cannot walk at the age of 2, he cannot walk at the age of when he is 12 months. Then with a little bit of encouragement from the mother, slowly he starts walking when he is 2 years old, right? Or when he is a year and a half or so. So that is when he is ready to walk. When he is ready to walk, then mother comes and helps him, right? When he is a 2-month-old baby, then he is not even going to try to walk, and mother is not also going to help him to walk, right? He's just lying and then when he's ready to walk, then mother comes to help him. In the same way, when the human beings are ready to walk and the human beings are ready to move towards that infinite, then the Taraka Brahma comes and helps them, right? So Taraka Brahma sees that their inner eyes are open and they want to move towards the 12 o'clock. They're having this mukti akanksha. They want to realize the infinite within them. Then Taraka Brahma is there to help them. That is the preceptor. That only that entity can be the preceptor, who is himself of the supreme rank at 12 o'clock, located at tangent of the Nirguna and Saguna Brahma, and that is the Taraka Brahma. The Taraka Brahma is the connection with the jiva, right? So he has a connection with the jivas, and he is not in bondage, right? A person who can guide us, who can be our guru, should not be under bondage of Prakriti, but he is still connected with the jivas who are under bondage of Prakriti. So somebody who is in jail cannot get themselves out of the jail, and they need somebody who is outside of the jail, but yet not so like the Nirguna Brahma, who has no connection with the jail, right? So it is very, very beautiful that only somebody who is outside the jail, like Taraka Brahma, he can help us. Right? As we've been saying that Brahma is one. Taraka Brahma is also the same Brahma, but having a different functional form. All the Nirguna, Guna, Taraka, all are different forms of the same Brahma. So that manifestation of that Brahma has a connection with jivas, and he can guide jivas with patience, right? So Brahma, at his own, when required, he takes the human form, right? He takes the human form for the welfare of the jivas, right? So he takes the human form, but it must be understood that such an entity, right, even though he is a human form, he is actually a liberated entity, right? And only he can actually, he is outside the prison. It is, we should remember that there are a lot of so-called gurus. They are not Taraka Brahma, they are not liberated, they are themselves students, right? So they cannot properly guide us. They are themselves in prison, so how can they guide us, right? So those are all Tathakatit gurus all over the world, right? So those people are all students. They got born here as a human form, and they are not in a position to guide us. They may have some things that are helpful. It all depends on the person, but the full manifestation, that person has an entity, that Taraka Brahma is not a human being, right? He takes the shelter of the Panchabhutas and appears in this world to give proper guidance to human beings, right? So they can guide us, and Taraka Brahma is dedicated for the welfare of all such living beings. Such an entity, by his own volition, right, takes the shelter of the Panchabhutas and appears in this universe. He maintains his own physical body and directly guides us, right? It is also possible that he may not be in human form, or he may take the human form. So okay, I think so that is what this paragraph is covering. So any questions here? We'll conclude the session over here. Any questions, Bhagini?
No, understood.
Okay, very good, Bhagini. So we'll actually conclude it over here. Dhanyavadaha, namaskara.
धन्यवादः, नमस्कारः.